Hey, and welcome to this Phalaenopsis Care Collab. I would like to thank Honeybees and Orchids, Ninja Orchids, What's Up Orchids, Fernanda Nascimento, Orchids and Succulents, Justin's Orchids and More, The Orchid Saga, Simply Orchids, etc., Danny's Orchid Journey for allowing me to join in. I am so excited. I love Phalaenopsis. All right, so let's talk about phals, my very favorite orchids still. I've been seriously collecting orchids since 2018, summer of 2018 when we bought the house. I've always had a Phalaenopsis of some sort or another in my home, but because of my husband's previous job before he retired, we did have to move a lot, so there was no point in getting a collection just not to take it with you. So once we bought the house, I was like, boom, here we go. So altogether, I have 133 orchids and houseplants. Of those, 75 are orchids, and of those, 45 or 46 are Phalaenopsis. I have purchased probably 5 of those already this month. So this shelf that you see right here is where the bulk of them grow, underneath those little grow lights. And I got those off of Amazon, just kind of test and see what goes on. And you can see my little butterfly clips I leave up there just in case I find a spike that I need to start training. And the way you can train a spike is you can do it with the light. But because they do grow underneath that light, sometimes they'll grow straight up to the light. So sometimes I do kind of bend them more towards this east-facing window that is in my living room, which is where I do grow the orchids. And the ambient humidity in this space generally runs between 30 and 40%. Currently today, with the window open, it is about 29% at 73 degrees. I usually like to leave my windows open during the spring and summer. I don't like running the AC too much because of, let's all say it, the drafts. And the reason you want to avoid the drafts is because you see these beautiful buds right here? Well, guess what will happen if a draft hits it? It's possible it can blast. So we try to keep it away from drafts. Also, I prefer to grow in bark, mainly bark. I do add perlite and charcoal to some of the pots, especially the pots like this. And I'm going to show you the ugliest orchid I have right now. Like this to help retain moisture, and it's a little dry, so I will give her some water. Tomorrow's watering day, so I'll probably just give her a little trickle just to make it a little damp in there. But what happened is I got greedy. I wanted these guys. I wanted les blooms. Well, this is what happens when you don't pay attention to your orchid and listen to your orchid. And you're like, I love the blooms. I want to keep the blooms. I don't want to cut the spikes. Well, this is what happens. She says, well, you don't want to cut the spikes. You want me to put all my energy into the blooms. Fine. Then something's got to suffer. Well, the leaves suffered. So she's lost all of her leaves so far. And as you can see, she's working on losing those too. And this right here is actually a mama and a keiki. When I repotted it, they're actually joined together. I can't tell which is which, so I just potted them in together. But she is starting to produce some roots, and she's got some leaves that can still help photosynthesize. But at last check, there were no new leaves growing in there. So I may possibly lose this one, and that's okay. It's just a hybrid. I see it at the grocery store all the time. I can always get another one. But if I can recover her, that would be great. And then we have this kind of thing that can happen. This is why phals are so interesting. So this is also a big girl. I love the big girls. If I had more space in here, oh, I would just have nothing but these big girls. But as you can see, they get pretty big. But do you see that spike? That spike came with the orchid. I bought this orchid on the 27th of December of 2020. Almost 6 months ago. That spike is just inching literally its way out. Every couple of weeks I notice a growth, and as you can see, it's starting to grow again. But then she stopped and she concentrated a little bit on this leaf, and then she grew some spike, and then she grew the leaf. So I don't know what's going on. She's got plenty of roots in the pot. I do call her pom-pom just because the flowers have a very pomegranate look to them. I'll post a picture if I can find it. And then also what I like to do when I get Phalaenopsis that come in the sphagnum moss, I like to train them if I can. So as long as they look healthy, and this one here, let me just put her down, we saw the roots, but she looks pretty healthy. Leaves look good and glossy and plump, so I'll just leave her like that. But what I'll do over the next few weeks is, as that moss dries out, I'll add a little bit of water, and then let it dry a little bit longer and a little more water. Let it dry until she gets used to having a longer dry period between her waterings. Then I'll move her into the bark moss mixture. Now sometimes you have those orchids that need to be repotted right away, just because of what they came in. So I do have a video that I did on that I'll link in the description below and put a tag up. And I believe it was this one here that we repotted just because the media she was in was horrible. And I was afraid that some of the smaller buds were gonna blast, but she has not skipped a beat, guys. Matter of fact, if you can look, she's actually extending her spike. So that is awesome. And then also, well, let's see, what else can we talk about phals? Oh, they are also known as the moth orchid. And the reason being, I guess whoever discovered them thought they looked like a moth in flight. Let's see, let's get this yellow one since it's a little the brightest. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see a moth in flight. I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at it the wrong way, or maybe it was because of the hybridization that has been done with these store-bought phals, that maybe that's why we just don't see the moth-like look. But in any event, they are named after the Phalaenopsis genre of moth, and I believe that Phalaenopsis literally means moth-like. So there is that. And then they are native to the Himalayas, Australia, and then 2 islands in the Philippines. I know one is Palawan, and the other one is like Zambanya, something like that, but they're in the Philippines. And like I said, these blooms can last for a month or up to a year, depending. And with these, with your spikes, when they extend their spikes, or I don't have any that are branching at the moment. I cut the branches off of this one yesterday because all the blooms blasted. But they'll branch off to the side and bloom. And again, as long as your plant is healthy and doing her thing, let her bloom. However, if your plant starts telling you, hey, something's wrong with me, I'm expending my energy into the wrong things, please, please cut your spike. Don't be greedy. I know most of us are like, I don't want to repot it. I don't want to cut the spike. I want to watch the blooms. Well, if you don't take care of the orchid herself and the things that make the blooms, then you're not going to have the blooms. So I'm a proponent of, even if that spike looks just absolutely gorgeous, as this one does, then I would go ahead and cut the spike for the health of the orchid. Also, when is it time to repot? When she outgrows her pot. And does pot size matter with orchids? Now, some people say yes, I say no. If you know how to work with the media that you're working with, such as semi-hydro. I know Ninja's Orchids does semi-hydro, and some of the pots that she uses might look uber large to us, but she has learned to work with her leca and her semi-hydro setup to control the moisture. That's why she's able to grow Cattleyas or Phalaenopsis, those that are generally known to like that wet-dry cycle in between. And of course, my neighbor decides to start mowing the grass as I'm in here. Hasn't done anything all day, and I've been waiting all day for the beautiful sun to shine through the window, so I'm just going to keep going and apologize if you hear the mower in the background. So where was I? Oh, pot size. So I don't think pot size really matters. Now I do put like my dendrobiums, some of my oncidiums, depending on the condition they're in a smaller pot, but as far as my phals, I just kind of put them in a pot that I like, so to speak. Obviously, I'm not going to put this little girl here in a ginormous pot like that. One should just look ridiculous. But if I have a big girl like this, I'm going to go ahead and put her in the pot I want her to stay in for 2 years, maybe 3 years. I have gotten really comfortable with the small fir bark. That's the bark that I use. It's just the normal reptile bark that you buy at the pet shop. So I rinse it off, let it dry out, and then I just use it. Mix it in with some just regular perlite and charcoal. I don't have like a ratio of how much I use. I just do like I do with cooking it, as I say in all my videos, till it looks good. But then we have, sometimes you get this, where you have these stressed orchids, and then hopefully, again, can someone tell me if this is a keiki or if that is going to be a spike? Let me get in a little closer, because it's starting to look like a little mitten there, starting to look a little more and more like a spike. I mean, yeah, a spike, so maybe not. So I'm going to hope that that right there may be a keiki, and then she's got one on the other side as well. So if not, then payday dollars for her, no big. But the cool thing is, one of her crosses is the Phalaenopsis Amabilis, and that is actually the, I believe it's Indonesia that has the Phalaenopsis Amabilis, or known as the, what is it, moon orchid? Something like that. But I know that they have that as their state symbol. So I think that is pretty cool. A lot of countries actually have that in their flags. Anywho, so I do have two species. I have this one here, which is a Phalaenopsis violacea crossed back to sibling. And to my understanding, when it's crossed back to sibling, the reason that they don't have crossed back to self is because they're not 100% sure that what it got crossed with was itself. So that's why they say sibling. But she has grown the leaf that you see on the right since she's been in my care. And then this leaf on the left is finishing up. And I've had her since the 14th of January. She is in mainly moss and charcoal, a little bit of fir bark and perlite. But if you can see, let's see, can we look at those roots? So she's got plenty of roots growing down there, which is lovely. So the thing with species, guys, is they do like to stay a little more moist than our hybrids. So that's why she has so much moss in there. Kind of contradicting myself when I said earlier I don't like growing my phals in moss, but that's why. This is the other species that I have. This is the Phalaenopsis Spiciosa red. And the leaf on the right is the one that she grew in my care. The one on the left, she finished off. It was already growing when I got her, and the tip had already been broken off. So she finished that one, but this one on the right is the largest that she's grown so far. And again, it's the same mixture as the violacea. It is mainly moss with some bark and some perlite and some charcoal in there. And I don't let her dry out either. So matter of fact, let me pull her out of here, because I love the clear pots, okay? So that moss looks dry, but I felt it earlier, it's damp, like it's almost dry. So I will be putting some water in here after this. But she does have some roots in there as well, so she's doing really well. And I prefer growing in plastic pots because I like to see roots. When I see roots, to me, that's saying, okay, I am doing my thing. When you see things like in this one, this is my peachy. So peachy has roots growing all over the place. As a matter of fact, she's got them, whoops, over here. Plus, she's working on this new leaf here. And the reason for this stake there is because these big girls, when they go towards the light, these leaves like to do, let's see, can I find one? Okay, do you see how this one here, this leaf is way back here, and then this one up underneath is kind of going this way, and it's because she's going to the light. So I like the uniformity look. So this here with the keiki, if you can kind of see, like she's a little more uniform, and that's kind of what I like. And you can do that by training them with the light. And then, like I said, I also will put the bamboo skewer because where she's positioned, I can kind of also prop this leaf on the edge of the stand, and then that'll kind of help, you know, keep it from folding over so much. So, and then I have this one here. This is another Phalaenopsis white cloud on a mount. She has finished the leaf on the left, and then she is working on the one on the right. And she does have a couple of roots. Like I said, you can grow them in varying ways. As long as you adjust however you're growing to your climate and adjust the orchid accordingly. Like, I would not take a Phalaenopsis that grew in bark and put it straight into water culture, for instance. There's a training process, I believe, from what I've watched. I tried water culture. I don't have the patience to change out the water and all the pH and all the different things that you have to do. I admire people who have that kind of patience. I am considering doing a self-watering test. I have not quite gotten that confidence up, but I might do it. So if you guys have any questions, or if you'd like to see a video on any of the phals, my girls here, just let me know in the comments below.